We have seen what's happening this week. This is the topic, the national topic is on fraudulent acquisition and attempt to transfer land. Not only public land, even in some cases, private land. And it's a big issue in this country everywhere. So there's what's going on in Athi River, the unfortunate demolition of people's homes and properties. But it's not just in Athi River. It's actually something that's happening all over the country. And so we want to expand this conversation. We are joined this morning by two people in the studio. One of them is Alfred Ndambiri. Alfred is an advocate with a practicing license, a current one, we hope, and he's going to prove it to us, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and also an activist in law and development. And Sam Munia is an assignment editor with Africa Uncensored. Sam has worked on a couple of stories on land grabbing and the land issues in the country. Alfred is involved in activism on issues on matters of land. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us here.
It's good to have you here. As we get into the conversation, CT will welcome you with the day's proverb. Listen carefully. We will ask you for your interpretation of this proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the Republic of Rwanda. You hide the fact you hate me. I hide the fact I know.
You hide the fact you hate me. I hide the fact
I know.
I know.
Correct.
Wakili, you say correct.
Yes, that is true.
You relate to that proverb?
I do relate to that proverb. Reason being, the moment you know about something and then you opt to remain silent, for so long as you're in this world, that remaining silent will one day come and haunt you. You had a chance, you had an opportunity to speak out, to do something, but because you failed, you refused, God will one way or another come and remind you, I had given you a talent, you refused, you failed to utilize it. Indeed, it ties pretty well, in my view, with what you read in Matthew chapter 5, about talent. So I am in absolute agreement. And even in my manner of interpretation, it's all about kindly, if you see something good or bad, do not just keep quiet.
Say it.
Talk, speak about it.
Okay. Interesting observation and interpretation. Let's hear from Sam. Sam, what's yours?
For me, I want to give a different context of the Johari's window, where we have the hidden, the known, and the unknown. And the more we open up, the more we are able to know each other, the more we get to know the truth, and the more the truth comes out and creates a very good relation in a society. Yes.
Johari's window. Yeah, ever heard of that?
I've heard about it, but I'll never be able to make the connection between
Connected to that
else.
and something like this. It's interesting, right?
Very.
It's quite interesting. All right, Sam, you've done some stories, a couple of stories on land grabbing. Just give us a context with which you worked.
First, thanks a lot for having us here. It's good to be home again. I worked here for some few years, and I celebrate this organization. It formed a foundation on what we do. We were here doing Jicho Pevu and the Inside Story. So we've continued doing in-depth and investigative stories. And recently, like you've just highlighted, we published, we are working on a 5-part series, and so far we published 2. And the 2 stories that we published highlighted 3 key areas. One was lease and leaseholds. The other one is cartels taking advantage of a situation and creating fake titles so that they can be able to grab from the owners. And the other one is people using power to corrupt the system.
Those are 3 angles, eh?
Yes.
So
there's
lease and titles and people just losing their leases.
Yes.
Cartels and how they come and swindle you and try to take what you own. And those that have been bestowed with the responsibility of being in offices of authority, misusing their offices.
Yes.
Okay, you will tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Wakili Alfred Ndambiri, you are an activist in law and development, and you're also play a big part in highlighting issues of land fraud in land and land misuse.
Yes.
Tell us about it. What is it that you do?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's correct. For my 32 years as a lawyer, I've tried my best, one, to create and make an understanding of what the law, more so that which relates to land, is all about. So I educate in very many forums, create legal awareness, and like I've said, I've done that for the last 32 years. I believe that it is not just about ignorance that leads us to the kind of situation we are now facing in the Mavoko area and in several other parts of the country. It's much more to do with our refusal, denial to take action. Fine, I proceed, from that legal maxim, ignorance of the law is no defense. But even where there's no ignorance, you still find ourselves operating on the basis of it is not my duty, it is not my responsibility, it is for others. My colleague, for example, has mentioned something about leases and titles. Do we really take time, especially when we get to those levels of wanting to own properties, to find out from those who know, in this case, lawyers, administrators, and the like, on what is a lease, what is a title, what is contained in a lease, what is contained in a title. 99% of us who claim to own property ideally don't own property in as far as the law is concerned. We only operate on that belief that I own property. I can give millions of examples.
Okay.
Millions of examples.
You unasutua ndu. It's 99%.
Yes.
You don't see yourself in 1%. The higher you have a 99% chance of being in the 99%.
For goodness sake.
And for real, not an exaggeration.
Right.
Right. Look at all those people who claim to own land in through land buying companies, and this is something that started many decades ago. It's not something that came about because in Mavoko there's somebody who was saying, yes, I'll sell you a 50 by 100 piece of land, and I'm sure I'll give you a title. But what comes out is a piece of paper. You never make investigations to find out the genuineness of that paper. I'm talking about land buying companies way back after independence, as we were told. Go to areas like Embakasi ranching in Nairobi, Guatanero, Motukanyo. How many people in those areas can actually in law qualify their statements that I own land? Because you only own land if your name is entered in a land register, which is a register controlled and managed by the government. If your name is never in that register, kindly, it's not fair for you to believe and to make others believe that you are a landowner.
And you're saying only 1% of Kenyans
Yes.
are in the register.
That's the reason, for example, in Nairobi for the last 6 years, we have been going through a transformation relating to correcting errors, correcting mistakes that are contained in the land registries at Ardhi House, so that we know exactly how many people own land in Kenya. It's the Ardhi Sasa system.
I'm sorry, but I don't understand. So we're saying that all these transactions of hundreds of millions of shillings over years and documentation that has been given to individuals, that has been passed on even to family members over generations. Essentially, these pieces of land, property, don't belong to these individuals according to the law, and to such a high number of 99%. How is that allowed to even happen?
Let me take the example of properties that have been inherited or passed down to others. There is a procedure which must be followed in law for whoever now wants to stand up and say, I have land that I inherited, say, from my deceased mother, my deceased father. The fact that, say, my mother owns land, she passes on, and then immediately I am all over the village saying, we were 5 of us, the land was 5 acres, now I own 1 acre. That is not correct in law. Unless you've gone through the process of legal succession, you should not be anywhere claiming that I own that 1 acre. Remember that succession process must end at you being registered as the owner of that 1 acre, which would have been subdivided from the 5 acres, so that all the 5 of you who are children of that deceased, are now recognized, by the law through, the land register. So I'm saying there are so many millions of us who, just because I had been allowed to put up a structure in my Moranga Kirinyaga mother's home in Nairobi, I keep telling my friends, hata mimi niko na shamba. Hapana. If your name is not in that register, please be kind to both yourself and to others. Mpaka you have your name entered into that register is when you should be saying, I am now a property owner.
How do you ensure that your name is in the register? Because look, you talk about land buying companies, land, and somebody tells you that here you can purchase this piece of land, you're interested, you get into a transaction. There are things like sale agreements that take place. And somebody says, well, and one of the things that draws people into this is when somebody tells you that titles are ready. It's ready title kind of thing. Ready titling.
Yes.
And you finish, and you may even have a piece of paper. In most cases, like we've heard most recently, it's a allotment letter, certificates of purchase. How do you then ensure that you get your name on this land registry? For goodness sake, many people don't know this land registry exists.
It's very simple, actually. It's a very simple process. I'm saying it's all about concepts. It's all about our own, refusal, as it were, denial, to accept what ought to be real and what ought to be genuine. If I want to acquire property, fine. There's a broker who comes and tells me with the Kangundo area, there's this company that has already subdivided, land into those 50, 100 acres, and I can negotiate for you, rather than you buying at 550,000, you can do it at 450,000. Yeah. My immediate reaction ought to be, let me find out the genuineness of that offer. How do I make sure that I get the correct answer? I ask this person who is claiming to be a broker or whatever other term he or she may use. Take me to that land. I go to that land. I tell him, give me the document you're calling a title to enable me conduct investigations and do some due diligence in relation to, one, its genuineness. Secondly, confirmation that indeed the land that you have shown me is the one that is captured in this document. So from there, if he or she gives me a copy of that title, that document, I'll know whether it is a title or a lease. And then either personally or through genuine lawyers, because again we still have a number of us who are not necessarily genuine, ask him or her to do his professional duty. Give me a correct answer in relation to the genuineness of this land. That lawyer will help you conduct investigations, and now the land registry. Every county has a land registry. Most of them used to be, even before the 2010 constitution, at the district headquarters. That's where you'll find those land registries. And they are land registrars. The first point when conducting a search is to visit that land registry. Apply for what is called a search. A search is what the registrar in that office ought to give you, and the search must contain full information relating to who is the owner of the title of the land which is captured in that title. Okay. Of course, if you go and meet a land registrar who is dishonest or who has been seen from the other side, he or she will create his own search certificate. And if for whatever reason the lawyer is not being very honest and believes on the result of that land search, and tells you, yes, this is the result of the search, you can continue and enter into the land transaction. That again will not necessarily be the right manner way to proceed. Because once you get that such certificate, it is still best you go much deeper. Ask for what we call a green card. A green card is the record, the government record, that contains information on the history of now this parcel of land measuring 50 by 100. It will tell you where it had all started. It can go back way into the 1940s, 1950s. That we will be able to trace, the origin, the history
So you can
of
see
this.
clearly
Yes.
the genesis of the 50 by 100.
Right. Now, once you're satisfied with that search, don't rest at that particular result. Go back, look for a surveyor, ask him, come and identify the beacons which are supposed to be in place on that 50 by 100 piece of land. That surveyor will go to the survey. We will conduct a search, see whether at the survey office there are any records showing if, for example, that land at one point was agricultural land, there is a mutation report relating to how it was subdivided.
What's a mutation again?
A mutation is a record relating to the process of subdivision. Every land which is subdivided, there has to be a report which is filed at the survey's office showing the measurements, the number, the location and all. And every land must have a mutation. If it is not agricultural land, for example, you would have a deed plan. A deed plan, majority of those who buy land, especially in the urban areas or areas where land has been subdivided to those 1/4, 1/8 pieces of land. A deed plan is also a map that shows you the extent of the land where the beacons have been positioned, and you yourself will be able to go measure, see whether what you're seeing on the ground matches with what is on paper. Once you're satisfied with all that, enter now into that sale agreement. Remember, a sale agreement is nothing in as far as transfer of property is not a complete it does not make it a complete process. A transfer is only an indicator that of intention, that I now want to own this land. It's the agreement that will contain terms, conditions between you, the buyer, or you and the seller. Make sure you agree with all those terms. If it's about the amount, the manner you're going to pay, whatever other improvements you may also agree will be done, to that parcel of land. Once you've met the terms, conditions of that sale agreement, then enter into a transfer. Currently, the law provides what are prescribed forms in as far as transfer of land is concerned. It is a 4-page document, and it is operates the whole country. You fill that transfer form and make sure all the details in that form are correct. Crucial details include: make sure you obtain a copy of the ID number of the person selling, the PIN number, and I'm saying follow up also on that PIN number. Do the same also with yourself, because you may be having, for example, an ID card whose numbers do not match with what is in the government records. Then, once you have filled that transfer, it is usually in triplicate. Both parties, that is, have the transfer form executed and witnessed. Then, present it now to the land registrar, applying for that transfer to be registered. Process requires that the land registrar will appoint a valuer to find out what ideally is the value of that land, to enable now the government charge the stamp duty. Once the valuer does her job, make sure you pay the stamp duty and maintain the records that indicate indeed that you paid the stamp duty. It is only after you have paid the stamp duty as a purchaser, and then the seller also pays the capital gains tax duty. Yes.
All this.
You.
No. I mean, all this to buy a piece of land.
50 by 100.
Yes.
Cap float.
But because that is what the law requires. If you don't do that,
If you ask me,
you'll be the
Yes.
fooled one.
Yes.
If you ask me what my brother is presenting, it's very good. And we need that education for our people. People need to be informed on what is happening and what is needed. I'm worried about the cancer that we have in this country, corruption. This country is a gangster paradise. We have people who are supposed to be doing their job, and they have corrupted the system.
Yep.
There is a way things are supposed to work, but people have corrupted the system. That's why you find double titling. You'll find all these demolitions happening, evictions with fake.
So what Alfred is saying
Yes.
is the ideal situation, and
paper.
what needs to happen.
Is what the law says.
What the
okay.
law says.
Now, what you say, gangster paradise.
Yes.
Okay, these gangsters. So this system that Alfred has described, what have they done?
What are you seeing?
Yes, to ensure that the very thing Alfred is saying does not get done.
Okay, let's take a break. When you come back,
Okay.
you will tell us
Experience.
what you have seen from experience and why there's no correlation between what the law says, as Alfred
And
said,
the reality.
and the reality on the ground.
Yes.
Alfred, I'm sure, also has cases of realities on the ground. 29 minutes to 9, Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Sam Munia. He's an assignment editor with Africa Uncensored, and Alfred Ndambiri is an advocate and an activist in law and development. Today, we are talking about encounters with land cartels and fraudsters and how to identify them. Good morning.
Spice.
Who's a journalist and assignment editor with Africa Uncensored, Alfred Ndambiri, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and activist in law and development. We're talking about encountering land cartels, land grabbers, land fraudsters. Wakili has just taken us through a long process of acquiring a 50 by 100. Says, this is what the law says. This is what you should do. Due diligence actually means this. Not ati I asked my neighbor, mulinunua? Mko na title? Ebu nione.
Hiyo title iko safi.
Huyu wakili wako nipatie namba yake. That you go clean title. No. But then, you're saying that is what the law says.
Yes.
You've done a series, and you're actually doing a series of African Uncensored, where you've talked to very many people who have encountered fraudsters.
Yes.
What is the experience that you've seen?
I appreciate what my brother put across in regards to the education that people need to have in terms of land registration. My worry is first, people are not well informed. My interaction with the people, people are not well informed about what they are supposed to do when acquiring the land. That's one gap that we found out. But there are people who are taking advantage of that situation. And these are people from different entities that are supposed to be responsible of giving good services to the people. First, the Ministry of Lands. Two, the DCI, the police. Also, the people in the county government, guys in charge of lands. And also the corridors of justice. That's where impunity is happening. We have cartels who have perfected the art, and they are using their positions to acquire land illegally, and they are even able to acquire land titles. Some of them are genuine, some of them are fake, depending on how you fight, and they are well protected by the people who are in this system.
Somebody, as you were doing your work, did you come across cases where people have attempted to do what Wakili has described as the due diligence and still ended up in the jaws of the fraudsters?
Yes, I want to give an example of the story that is trending currently on the Westlands. This is a land that is inherited from their dad, the Shahs in Westlands, and they've been paying the rates. They even renewed the lease for a period of 50 years. But somebody went to the register, and actually the manual and the digital, and the committee for Nairobi County were not able to get the footprints because the guys were not very cooperative when presenting their case. But these guys removed the documents and replaced with others in the
land registry.
Actually, both registers.
Right.
And their savior was a green book.
The green card.
The green card he was highlighting. That's what their savior. They also deleted their names on the digital platform.
Whose names?
Yes.
Whose names?
The Shah's names.
The original owner's name.
The original name. Actually, if it were not for the green, they would have struggled. As of now, it's clear that the land belongs to them. Otherwise, without that...
Wait. There are people who actually went to the land registry.
Yes.
There is a digital platform where those names exist, isn't it?
Yes, there's a digital platform.
They changed those names.
Yes.
Then they went to whatever is manual, Kwele file.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Documents were replaced.
Yes.
And the documents that were replaced mirror the same documents that one then now would find in the digital plot.
one.
Yes, when you're looking for that plot number.
Yes.
Hey,
Now
But
I
it-
can understand why you called it gangster's paradise.
Yes.
my goodness. We were told here on
impunity.
many occasions that digital platform is impenetrable.
Yes.
Yes,
Disaster, isn't it the same
The
one we're talking
systems are
about
good,
now?
but the people who operate, are they honest?
Because that is the point at the end of the day, that a system does not operate itself, it is operated by people.
Yes.
So this is the question that we're asking today. Then that gives then rise to what Wakili had said before about this 99%. Because until and unless you can qualify that, even if you qualify that your name is the one inside the system, somebody can go and change
No,
it.
that system is not what they say it is. You know why? Systems leave footprints or handprints. And systems have processes that when you abrogate, you go against, it alerts. The security
it
systems are
alert?
like,
Yeah.
now if it doesn't,
Yes, it does.
yes. So all I'm saying is the green card is useful, yes, but the system itself ought to be the one that should have flagged this thing off in the first place.
It is the people who are not dishonest who are operating the system.
It's the hackers.
You know, I'm not leaving this thing of the system is not impenetrable. You can give me evidence if you like, but clearly,
There are people who are on the inside.
yes.
Yeah. So others, outsiders, will not penetrate.
Yes.
So the
But
ones
the
inside are
insiders.
doing
Indeed, you have to like if I use bribery, you know, the offense of bribery. Bribery is an offense that is created by parties on both sides. There's a giver and a taker.
The receiver.
So when you're talking about corrupting systems, there are two sides, you know, of the same coin. So it is quite right for you to say that were it not for the people inside, say, the system, even those outside would not be able to achieve their purpose. And indeed, that is why we now have such agencies, departments, like the police, the CID. Their role is, because mistakes or offenses will be committed. There must be other agencies, departments whose duty is to follow up. The CID in particular have the skills, the ability. I'm saying those who are not corrupt, because in that department you also find so many who are corrupt. But those who are honest will so easily follow up on an issue like my colleague is talking about the Westlands.
Well, I agree.
It didn't take even 3 days for them to obtain that green card and know there's something very wrong. Let me use another example. In the Parklands area right now, there are so many apartments that are coming up. From the very beginning, I and another civil society group have conducted investigations in less than 3 months, and we have established that 60% of the apartments where, you know, of the apartments where these developments are taking place, the titles do not belong to the developers. And these are the apartments where you're in Turkey and you're being told we are selling a 4-bedroomed apartment
And you can
at
pay
18
over-
million.
and you can
And
pay
then you're
over
the
4
first
years.
one. Yes, you're the first one to pay a deposit of 6 million. You do not want to spend time, or even if you're in Turkey, get somebody who will conduct an investigation to tell you whether, one, the original title of where the building is being put up belongs to the developer or to the owner. Secondly, move another step. Today we have the law that says if you are the person developing apartments, you must ensure every unit has its own title.
But also, Wakili, we also have the law which insists that a developer goes through a process of certification before
And
the
registration.
shovel even touches the soil.
Certified by the people in the government.
Certified by people who then are the agents for licensure to
Yes.
ensure that these things can happen. Before we even go far to start talking about who will buy, can you ensure there's a title? You have to go through a process of certification before you can start to develop.
In fact, I was going to now talk about that. There's a developer. Let me move away from what I was going to talk about ownership. About approvals. The same area, we have conducted an investigation, established that in 60% of the areas where these houses are being developed, one, you'll go and find an X mark of the National Construction Authority, which actually tells you no activity should be going on on this land. Reason being, the NCA, National Construction Authority, for one reason or another, never approved that construction. We do further investigations. We go to the county government, Nairobi City County Government, the department involved with approvals. You find that for 6-10 months, a small inquiry in terms of have you approved this development, you get no answer. No, the officers in those departments.
You lodge an application requesting information.
Yes.
You don't get a response.
Don't get a response. And you wonder, what are the people then for whom you're paying taxes to be paid salaries doing? Just giving you an answer of yes or no. From there, you again move to other agencies that are supposed to regulate, maendeleo as it were, NEMA. You go to NEMA, and then you take a report. In this area, there are so many 100-year-old trees, including the mogumos and the mekindoris. They have been chopped so that, a 16-floor apartment can be put up. Did you give approval? Because you're in charge of environment. And you're told, come on, close your eyes.
Sam, I want to ask you, you talk about cases, obviously, that you've covered in terms of, stories, individuals across board. We're talking about heavy cartels here who are involved in these things. Can you say unequivocally, how do folks know, for example, this Asa thing is bothering me, really? How can you be sure that, yes, somebody has gone in, essentially and jobbed the system and changed names in a supposedly secured system? How do you know? Is there trailing? Is there tracking of the footprint that we talk about for you to be able to see that it read Charles Timothy Muga, now it reads Eric Lash? How do you know that has actually taken place from what you investigated?
For the case like the Westlers case, you'll find that the presentation by the ICT guys was that the names existing by that time were of a person called Wambugu and someone. The sad part is it was replaced during a certain period, and you don't have genuine people giving you a honest account on who did what at a certain
period.
Time.
Is it a specific period?
I don't want to be preemptive because there is a part we are going to name and shame those cartels without fear or favor. But the point I'm trying to create here is these people who are doing this did not cooperate first with the county government that was investigating that. Secondly, they were alleging that this thing happened in 2020. They wanted to blame a certain regime, but in the real sense, it happened in 2014. So it's a whole, we changed the system, but you never change the people inside that system.
This registry at Nairobi County, is it linked to the National Registry?
Which one?
The Nairobi Land Registry.
Yeah, it is.
It is linked to the National Registry.
Every county has its own registry.
Yeah.
But then in Nairobi, you also have a registry that captures, properties from all over the nation. Indeed, there are two land registries in Nairobi: a Nairobi registry and a central registry. And the Adisasa process is supposed to bring the two together. Indeed, presently, what should be happening is the moment, for example, a parcel of land is converted, because that's the language used, from the previous land reference number to a new land reference number, and is therefore entered into that ADI system. The owner of that land is supposed to apply to have an account, through that Adisasa system. Then it is only the person whose name has now been entered into that Adisasa account who can give any directions or make any decisions relating to that land. If you also, even when you want to make a search over that land, the owner must give permission that the correct information, or rather the information relating to land ownership, can now be released to the person applying for that search. Unfortunately, as of today, I don't think we have more than 5% of those who have already entered into that Adisasa system. And it's one of the reasons we are saying it is very difficult practically to operate, especially in Nairobi, a clean land transaction deal. It is not you who is to blame. It is now that system. That's where you're coming in. But the Adisasa system is supposed to be secure to the extent that once you're recognized as the landowner, it is only you who can make decisions.
But it is not secure.
Yes, but it's not yet. Yes, it's not yet.
And fraudsters know this.
Of course, they are the same people.
Right.
Yeah, they are, okay, but let me put it this way. Incidentally, there are not very many in this country.
But you only need one, really, don't you?
Yes, exactly.
With 4,000 acres of land to sell.
If you are only able, to use now our other, systems like the DCI, and even Parliament, we can easily bring all these people.
The problem with that
to the
digital
table.
system is that even the people who are supposed to work on that system to transfer that information from analog to digital platform are the same people who are responsible of creating this crap online. So that's why it's a very huge challenge for people who are buying land or people who are doing claims or transferring leases or renewing leases, because there are people who are already mastered an art of creating a gap for the people who are taking up leases. And they do that in advance. They change the system. When you're going to renew, you're told this land
doesn't belong to you. Or you go and find, actually, there's cases where you hear what you see at lands registry, because you said you begin at the lands registry and then you go to the surveyors. When you go into the survey office, you find on the survey map, there's a new entry. There's like a piece of land in that survey map that has been excised. Those records may not be reflecting at the lands registry. So now in that case, what do you do? Because what you're finding at the lands registry is this, which is 5,000 acres of a directly rectangular piece of land. You go to the survey office, you find 3,450 acres. And then there's some bit of it that has been excised and appears to belong to somebody else, and the records are not clear. You find such cases, such incidences. We've heard reports of such. Other incidences where, like you're saying, somebody's a big piece of land, they've known that the land belongs to us, and then they go to the land registry and they find that there are several other entries that have been made without their knowledge. What do you do in such cases?
Thank you. This may sound a bit arrogant, but the answer lies in you saying no to that transaction. The moment you come across that revelation, that information, kindly say no. And if you do so, in my view, you will not encourage, such transactions or such conduct behavior multiplying. So it is upon you now to say, sorry, if I participate in this process, I'll only be encouraging.
Who are you telling to say no? The public officer?
No, yourself. It is yourself.
You make the decision.
You make the decision yourself.
Shamba imeenda, Alfred.
No. You see, your question.
No to what?
Your question was, you are making inquiries, you're doing the due diligence.
Yes.
That's why when you find that the information in the land registry does not match with what is at the survey registry, for example. That's why I'm saying, then say no.
Abort mission.
No. Exactly.
I am the owner of the land.
If you go to a land registrar who gives you, a search, and then once you do your further due diligence, you realize it's a mistake, do not stop at not naming that land registrar. Let your complaint go to the a police station, for example, the DCI police who have a police station near where that land registry is. If that does not happen, we are told you can even make a complaint via email to the DCI in Kiambu, but don't stop from naming
Let me ask you
that
something.
person.
How many Kenyans, on average, do you think have actually interacted with their title and yes, they believe they own land? Whether it's ancestral. Yes.
We live by faith.
Exactly.
That's what I'm asking, because those people who don't have a title also sell land.
Yes.
That land of theirs.
And I'm focusing on those who now buy and encourage,
Even
you
those
know,
who
this
have
malpractice.
title, they're not
Yes.
sure that they have that
You see,
title.
the reason I asked the first question is because
How
this-
do you know? How can you tell a title?
yes, I
Genuine
mean,
from
The
fake.
due diligence.
you're looking at this. Okay, are titles available to all the land that we have in this country?
Original fakes are available.
Original fakes.
Yes.
Then there's real fake, and then there's real.
So the fakeness is layered.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm talking about original fake being an original title through an illegality.
Illegality.
The process that of acquiring that land or that title is through an illegality. But that the title you shown, it's a genuine title.
Yes.
So that's why you have cases of double titling
And
in
they're
the same
both
land.
genuine.
Yeah, they are genuine, all from the Ministry of Lands.
Let me ask.
No,
you something.
I think-
sorry, please. It's very important. The Ministry of Lands can duplicate a title, and this title goes to two different.
It is not the ministry; it's the people in that
Exactly.
ministry.
Okay.
There cannot
Understood.
be two
Crooks.
genuine titles. There
So there's
can
a
only
Rogue
be one.
people.
There's a crook who prints
Yes.
a piece of paper that
Yes.
looks
Yes.
on,
Like-
on title
Yes.
material,
Yes.
Yeah,
enters
with
details,
the letterhead of the.
enters LR number
Yes.
and IR number that belongs to
Plus-
another title.
plus
Yes.
seal.
Plus puts a seal.
Yes.
Yes.
So it looks genuine.
Yes.
But the real sense
There's
is
only
it's
one
not
genuine title. There can be no two.
Yes.
You know, my question was, land in this country, do we have pieces of land that do not have titles and the process of getting titles has not been done?
Yes, correct.
Precisely.
Again, millions.
And there, my point. And there are people who buy that land because the selling point is, haina title, so it's cheaper.
Now,
But we're in the process of getting title.
you see, the Constitution has the provision relating to, for example, community land. Community land doesn't have titles. And
community land is not transferable.
no, it can go through a process
Yeah.
and end up being transferable. Yes, it's all
Okay.
about exactly.
It can go through a process.
It can go
Also
through a
some
process.
free-
Yes, right. So
freehold.
yes, there
Like
are
the guys in the countryside.
areas where you're told, like the community land, when it is going through the process, reaches the level stage where you're given a letter of allotment.
Yes.
A letter of allotment is not a title.
No.
It is an offer. That letter of allotment tells you have been identified either because you're the chairman of this cultural group, or you belong, to the youth group. So
or you're
we've
a
decided to
descendant of
reward you.
so-and-so.
We give you this letter of allotment. Then it has its own terms, conditions. This area, where the letter of allotment refers to, you're supposed, to develop, or rather to do some farming or establish an industry within a space of 2 years.
But it's
That's
not
what the letter is
ownership.
telling you.
The land still belongs to the community.
At that point, yes, it's not yours.
right?
But
Exactly.
you believe
Yes.
because
Yes.
you've done
Have that-
whatever it is that is required.
You've just
the
been
land
given easement
Yes.
onto the property.
A promise. Yeah, it's a promise, but with conditions. Until that
and,
letter of
and
allotment.
it has tenure. It
Yes,
cannot be forever.
That letter of allotment tells you even the period within which the terms, conditions contained must be met.
Okay.
You see what happens? 80-90% of people with letters of allotment sell letters of allotment.
Yeah.
You are buying, are believing you're buying land.
But here we are dealing with a problem that arises from the interest people have in land in this country, which is being exploited.
Yes.
Because they are already vulnerable to exploitation just by virtue of the fact that they want to own land.
That's true. And I want us to distinguish between these two, Wakili. Community land and land that belongs to your forefathers because you live here. It may not necessarily be gazetted as community land,
Yes.
right?
The freehold.
Yes. So for your grandfather was here, your father was here, your uncles live here. That is not necessarily community land.
That is why the forefathers you're talking about ought to be having titles.
Yes.
Confirming ownership. Once it has that
Wakili, so
title,
And that's why
Wakili.
now, when we see the government saying now they are issuing title deeds, for example, they go to the coast, they're issuing title deeds. They're not issuing title deeds on community land.
no.
It is on land that ought to be
has
private.
that
Yes,
existed.
that now has, it is recognized.
Now it's been recognized.
You see,
Yes.
you
And then there is community land where it's a huge ranch. Let's say you go to Kajero.
No, the
this
Eastern
is
Kenya, for
demarcated
example, I
as
mean, all
community
those-
land. Community land, you cannot go and start subdividing it. Your women, your chairman or your group
No.
and start selling. And if you buy, you will not be getting a title.
Exactly.
And you cannot even be
You've been
considered to have
fooled.
bought.
And
Yes,
how
you
many
have been
people have
fooled.
bought land that is of that nature?
Many. Let's
Yes.
continue this conversation in the next hour. There are very many people who are asking questions. If you don't mind, we can then open up and hear the questions coming in. We are discussing the issue of encountering land fraudsters in this country and the Situation Room this morning. We'd like to hear from you. You can ask the questions to Wakili Alfred Ndambiri, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, activist in law and development. Sam Munia is a journalist. He's joining us this morning from Africa Uncensored. He's an assignment editor there. He's worked on a couple of stories on land, and he has met people who have faced what he's calling the banditry. What are you calling it? Gangster paradise. Gangster's paradise. Keep it here for that. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your